Welcome to the Saturday Morning Breakfast Mix, where we highlight the highs and lows of a particular Saturday morning cartoon, and maybe some weekday ones that I, as well as many of us, grew up with, and to show why these awesome Saturday morning cartoons made weekends and weekdays just the best, and why seeing them now instantly brings back glorious memories of those carefree childhood days. The planet Prysmos. A futuristic world where technological advances created to help mankind are suddenly rendered useless when the planet's suns are realigned.
Scientists are at a loss to explain the disruption of technology across the planet, but authorities warn against panic.
Out of this post-technological loss, the age of magic begins. Two groups would rise to dominance from the devastation to wage war upon each other. One is controlled by honest and law-abiding people, and the other by criminals and villains. Following an open challenge thrown down by the great wizard Merlin, 14 surviving knights are granted powers of transformation and magical energy. The groups are now divided between the good Spectral Knights and the evil Darkling Lords. The battle for supremacy begins. This is their story.
It is a time when magic is more powerful than science, and only those who control the magic control destiny. They are the Visionaries.
Knights of the magical light. Visionaries, magical powers they fight. Powers of light which reach skill and speed. Powers to accomplish the greatest of deeds. Visionaries, knights of the magical light.
Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light was an animated series based off a line of action figures created by Hasbro and debuted on September 21st to December 14th of 1987. The series and toy line also consisted of several promotional tie-ins, such as a comic book series published by Star Comics and 2 storybooks. The series was created by Flint Dial and was comprised of 13 half-hour episodes. The series was produced by both Hasbro and Sunbow Entertainment, making it the only Hasbro property to be produced by Sunbow Entertainment on their own, without the aid of Marvel Productions. As for the animation production itself, that task was handed down to anime studio Tokyo Movie Shinza. Far away, beyond the stars, existed a planet by the name of Prysmos. A planet that thrived with technological advances that were only limited to one's own imagination. A world at a technological zenith which resulted in its inhabitants living a life of comfort and ease for over 7,000 years. But this was not to last. For when the rare celestial realignment of the 3 blazing suns of Prysmos occurred, that the age of science and technology would meet its untimely end. This rare celestial event would cause all electronics and technology to fail, ultimately plunging the inhabitants of Prysmos into an age of chaos. For when the age of sciences ended and all the electrical energy had been depleted from the world, the age of magic is ushered in. But it would take some time for men to believe this. As the years passed and the old order collapsed, a new, more primitive order would give rise. Reduced to a feudal level, the people of Prysmos strive to rebuild civilization as best they can from the ruins of the old world. Independent city-states emerge, including the city of New Larrick under the leadership of Larrick, and a separate domain ruled by his main rival, Darkstorm. Larrick fights to maintain peace and prosperity for his kingdom, while Darkstorm wishes nothing but to rule over all for his own selfish needs. Knowing that the balance of power between Darkstorm and Larrick could easily be tipped, both sides frantically search for a military advantage. But in an age of no technology, all efforts seem futile. It is then that Darkstorm is visited by an ancient wizard by the name of Merlin, who explains to Darkstorm and his army of the Darkling Lords that the age of science is over and that the age of magic has begun, and that in a temple high above Iron Mountain lies a shrine filled with magic of every description for his benefit, but only if he believes. Darkstorm is not easily convinced and sends the wizard away, for he believes there is no such thing as true magic. Later that day, Merlin has an audience with New Larrick's leader, Larrick, and explains his reason for visiting. For he seeks brave knights, men and women of vision, to teach all those who believe him in the ways of magic. Unlike Darkstorm before, Larrick and his men actually believe in what Merlin has to say and start making preparations to journey atop Iron Mountain. But unbeknownst to them, Mordred, Darkstorm's most loyal Darkling Lord, has been spying on them and reports his findings to his master. Wanting to stop Larrick from gaining any advantage, Darkstorm and his Darkling Lords agreed to partake the quest for magic, for the reward of his quest might be just the thing to tip the war in their favor. Assembling various knights from all over Prysmos, Merlin offers the challenge that for those who can survive the various traps set before them by the wizard, will be rewarded with magical powers beyond their wildest dreams. Various knights eagerly accept the challenge laid forth to them with the hopes of being awarded the power that Merlin has promised the victor, including contingents led by Larrick and Darkstorm. Their loyalty, treachery, and cunningness are put to the ultimate test. While others turn back and flee, the remaining knights are ever more determined to get to the shrine and reap in its reward. Encountering various traps and obstacles, both groups led by Larrick and Darkstorm are pitted against one another in order to assure that one of them gains the upper hand. Followers of Darkstorm would devise treacherous schemes to distract or eliminate the various knights, but Larrick and crew would overcome each task with valor and bravery. Many rivalries and various encounters would result along the way to achieving Merlin's gift of power. And in Darkstorm's case, a new batch of Darkling Lords would aid him on his quest for the magic, but only if they swore loyalty to him.
I could, but to do so would require considerable effort on my part, which I could only do for my loyal subjects.
Therefore, if you desire me to carry out this deed, you must swear loyalty to me.
It would be an honor to serve with the infamous Darkstorm.
You got good food in your castle?
The best.
Then I'm in.
You leave me little choice, so rule me well or suffer the consequences.
Blast you, Darkstorm! Cut me down!
Excellent. Worthy subjects, I shall extract you.
As the final few knights enter the shrine, they are ambushed by the Darkling Lords and a battle commences. As each participant battles to save their lives, the fight is abruptly ended by Merlin, who promises there is enough magic for all. Out of the many knights that partook the competition, only 14 make it to Merlin's magical shrine. The ancient wizard deems them worthy of his gift and gives them the magic to help them and their people to prosper in this new age, the age of the Visionaries. In exchange for this magic, Merlin only asks for occasional tasks to be made in his favor, but those tasks will be asked when the time comes. Each knight is then given magical abilities, or totems, based on their personalities and experiences while surviving the wizard's trap-infested mountain. Arzon now possesses the totem of Eagle, giving him the ability of flight. Cinder is given the totem of the Gorilla and is gifted with the ability of incredible strength. Witterquick is given the totem of Cheetah, giving him the power of speed and dexterity. Kravex is given the totem of Phylot, a pterodactyl-like scavenging creature on the planet Prysmos that too gives him the ability of flight. Ektar is given the totem of the Fox, giving him the power of heightened senses. Mortrid is given the totem of Scampering Beetle, for obvious reasons. Farrell is given the totem of the Wolf, heightening his tracking skills. Virulina is given the totem of the Shark, giving her the power to travel in great speed underwater with a vicious killer instinct only matched by her personality. Galadriel is given the totem of the Dolphin, giving her also the power to travel in great speed underwater as a result for her intelligence and quick thinking. Lexor is given the totem of Armadillo, giving him the power of protection as a result of his turning cowardice into a defensive art. Cryotech is given the totem of the Bear as a result of his great strength and endurance. Recon is given the totem of the Lizard as a result of his stealth and devious treachery. Larrick is given the totem of the Lion as a result of his raw courage and great leadership. And finally, Darkstorm, who now possesses the totem of the Mollusk as a result of his incredible climbing skills and slimy, treacherous nature. As all the knights are given their magical abilities, they are forewarned by Merlin that, like emotions, their powers can also become quite powerful and uncontrollable. The old wizard then instructs the knights who are holding their staffs, them being Darkstorm, Sindar, Kravex, Lexor, Leoric, Cryotech, Witterquick, and Arzon, into the pool to receive additional power. As for those knights that have no staffs, however, Merlin assures them that in time they too will discover their additional powers. Removing their staffs from the magical pool, the knights now have the powers of Wisdom, Light Speed, Knowledge, Strength, Decay, Destruction, Fear, and Invulnerability. However, each time their power staffs are used, their powers will grow weaker, and that the only way to fully recharge them is to return to the shrine atop Iron Mountain and dip their staffs in the magic pool. And without any further explanation, Merlin rids himself of the knights, who now find themselves outside of his temple. Outside of the temple, the knights begin to fight amongst themselves, but are halted by Darkstorm, who proposes to only use their powers for peace and prosperity on Prysmos. Hesitant at first, Leoric agrees with Darkstorm's idea, and all return to New Larrick. But unbeknownst to them, this peace treaty is just a ploy for Darkstorm and his newly assembled Darkling Lords to devise a plan to rid himself of the do-gooders once and for all.
It is so much easier to be evil.
In doing so, the Darkling Lords were able to fool Arzon by tricking him into thinking he was saving a lost damsel. This surprise came about when Arzon called upon the power of his magical staff, the Bearer of Knowledge, who revealed that the fair maiden was indeed the treacherous Virulina in disguise. As the battle between Arzon and Virulina commences, other members of the Darkling Lords join in the fray. Quickly outnumbered, Arzon tries to flee using his Eagle Totem, but is quickly captured by the Darkling Lords. Feeling that he will need more shackles and prison chains to capture the remaining knights, Darkstorm commands both Mordred and Recon to scour the nearest junkyards for strong metal in order to devise the next step in his plans to capture the remaining knights and retrieve their power staves. As Mordred and Recon were scavenging for metal in the nearest junkyard, both discover, as a result of a brief conflict between each other, that they possess the ability to infuse vehicles with magic, bringing life to them once more. Realizing this, the two Darkling Lords make their way back into Darkstorm's castle to tell him of their great discovery. When the Darkling Lords come across this discovery, by way of Mordred and Recon crashing their newly working acquisition into Darkstorm's war room, Darkstorm instinctively tries to pilot the Skyclaw himself, but finds that it does not operate, with Recon's only response being that any Visionary can pilot a vehicle, but that him and Mordred are the only knights who can breathe magic into the metal. Having an even greater advantage with working vehicles in their possession, the Darkling Lords use this opportunity to attack and capture Witherquick and Cryotech within their respective kingdoms, with only Galadriel being able to escape to warm Leoric. Once informed of Darkstorm's treachery, Leoric looks to his power staff containing the power of wisdom for any help it might bestow upon him in his most darkest of times. Upon calling his power staff, Leoric is told that he must become one with the Circle of Life. Not understanding what the power of wisdom means by that, Leoric advises his knights to safeguard New Valaric, for an impending attack by the Darkling Lords is imminent. As the Darkling Lords approach New Valaric, Mordred is sent out as a messenger to represent his master and instructs Leoric and crew to surrender his kingdom. Refusing his offer, Darkstorm and his Darkling Lords commence an assault by commanding Sindar to unleash his power staff, summoning the power of destruction. With such power at their disposal, the Darkling Lords take advantage and start a full-scale assault on New Valaric, ultimately capturing Leoric and crew, but not before draining Ferrell of his magical totem with the help of their magic dungeon, as an example of what will happen if they do not swear loyalty to him. Locking away the heroes in his dungeon, Darkstorm addresses the people of New Valaric and declares himself to be their new ruler. Not so easily convinced, the people of New Valaric try to fight the tyrant, but are quickly put in their place once Darkstorm calls upon his power staff, the power of decay, on a nearby citizen, robbing him of his youth. Back in the dungeon, Leoric is reminded of what his power staff had told him and realizes that to truly become part of the Circle of Light, they must fight as one. Form a brotherhood to overcome the darkness. A sacred order to bring light to the darkness of their world. As the now christened Spectral Knights are assembled, the nefarious Lexor unloads a trap to kill the heroes as a result of Ektar making fun of his voice. Using quick thinking, Arzon uses his magical totem to escape his current predicament with Leoric, and together are easily able to dispose of the nearby guards and rescue their comrades. Returning Ferrell's totem back to his armor with the help from Ektar, the remaining knights make quick work of the guards and retrieve their weapons and journey forth to Darkstorm's chamber, where the heroes come across the Darkling Lords fighting amongst themselves as a result of their own greedy intentions. Calling upon his magical staff to halt the oncoming attack from the Spectral Knights, Darkstorm realizes that his efforts are useless, as his power staff, as well as others, have been drained of their magic during the initial attack on New Valaric and escaped to their vehicles. Leoric, meanwhile, leads his knights to nearby vehicles of their own, for he believes that if both Recon and Mordred could activate vehicles, then they too must have the power to do so as well. Such a thought proves to be successful, as the Spectral Knights are now hot on the trails of the Darkling Lords. As a fight ensues between the Spectral Knights and the Darkling Lords, the odds are suddenly in the favor of the heroes and they quickly capture Darkstorm and his men. Once captured, the now imprisoned Darkstorm is approached by a mysterious figure and is given a key to free himself from his bonds. We soon then discover that the mysterious figure is the wizard Merlin. With the Darkling Lords confined to forever making traffic signs, the Spectral Knights visit a nearby town that is having agricultural problems and suggest that maybe Merlin might have something in order to help them of their situation. Using the key that the wizard had given him, Darkstorm and his Darkling Lords escape their prison and too find themselves on the path to Merlin's shrine. Thanks to Ektar's warning, the Spectral Knights were able to evade an oncoming attack from the Darkling Lords, but not without some loss, as Darkstorm and his men were able to retrieve their power staffs during the battle and are now on their way to Merlin's shrine. Once the Spectral Knights and Darkling Lords find their way into Merlin's temple, the wizard puts an end to their fight and makes it clear to both sides that he has no interest in their petty rivalries, for he has concerns of his own. The wizard then tells them that in order to receive more magic and power their staffs once again, that they first must venture forth on a quest to find the Dragon's Eye. It is then revealed by Merlin that the reason he had given each knight magical powers was not because of his own selflessness, but because he intends to use the knights as instruments of his own will. To prove that he is fair to what he promises, Merlin allows the knights to recharge their power staffs in the sacred pool just this one time for free, and gives them the map to the location of the Dragon's Eye, with only the Spectral Knights accepting the quest and leaving the temple. Staying behind, the Darkling Lords see this as an opportunity to attack the wizard, but soon discover that their efforts are useless.
I cannot attack the holder of the orb! Very well then, we shall attack him ourselves!
Please, Merlin, I had nothing to do with Darkstorm's plot. Please, spare me!
Quiet, coward! Important things must be done. Now, get me the Dragon's Eye.
Coming across an old city, the Spectral Knights once again find themselves at the mercy of the Darkling Lords. But before any side can claim the Dragon's Eye, they are confronted by a Techno Dragon. Calling upon his power staff, Arzon's totem reveals that the one bearing the Dragon's Eye and operating the Techno Dragon is a wizard by the name of Valkama, and that he is one of many wizards who inhabit Prysmos and is a member of the same circle of wizardry as Merlin. As the Techno Dragon confronts both the Darkling Lords and the Spectral Knights, both sides decide to combine their efforts in order to defeat the beast and are successful. With both sides now fighting for possession of the Dragon's Eye, Valkama uses the distraction to escape, but is ultimately captured by the Darkling Lords and taken as their prisoner, for Darkstorm might have use of his magical talents in the near future. As the Spectral Knights claim victory in obtaining the Dragon's Eye, they confront Merlin and reveal to him their knowledge as to why the wizard needed the Dragon's Eye. That without it, his sacred pool would lose its magical power and be of no use to him anymore. Agreeing to give the heroes the magic to help their cities and their dying agriculture, the Spectral Knights oblige the wizard's request and hand him the Dragon's Eye, but not without first promising that they must never tell the Darkling Lords of what was discovered. For if they knew why the wizard needs these magical artifacts, he would be at their mercy. And that was only the first 3 episodes, as many confrontations between the Darkling Lords and the Spectral Knights would occur in the show's 13th episode run. Oh, did you know? As mentioned before, there was a short-lived Visionaries comic book series. Only 6 comics were produced, with the first 2 issues released under Marvel Comics' imprint Star Comics, and the final 4 being released by Marvel themselves. The comic was cancelled midway through a 4-part adventure. The first issue was an adaptation of the first episode, The Age of Magic Begins, but subsequent issues took the storyline in a different direction. There were a few differences in details. Whereas in the cartoon, the staff-bearing knights had only one use of their staffs before needing a recharge, while in the comic, they could use their staffs as often as they liked. The final 3 issues were scripted by comic book veteran Jerry Conway, who is known for co-creating the Marvel Comics vigilante, The Punisher, and scripting the death of the character Gwen Stacy during his long run on The Amazing Spider-Man. Conway is also known for co-creating the superhero Firestorm and wrote the first major modern-day intercompany crossover, Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man. 2 storybooks were also released by Marvel Books under the Big Looker storybook label. Both books, The Mystical Mirror of Prysmos and Encounter at Iron Mountain, were illustrated by legendary artist Earl H. Norem. A second round of characters were intended to be released for the toy line which inspired the show, though it never came to fruition when the line failed, due to the expense and time needed to make their fragile breastplate and shield holograms. Although prototypes of the figures and vehicles were made and catalog photography was released, along with a proposed Iron Mountain playset, the line was cancelled before any were released. The second wave of figures would have consisted of the Spectral Knights Laser Slash, Slywire, Malator, Ramazan, Hydron, Kragor, Ramak, and Cybron, as well as the Darkling Lords Kabor, Brax, Cyclor, Lizar, Pyrock, Croyle, Aquarier, Draculon, and Alsteon. Figures for Galadriel and Virulina were not created, nor was one of Merlin, but a holographic image of him was meant to appear in the Iron Mountain playset. Since the series was produced by Sunbow, a few notable Transformers and G.I. Joe voice alumni would also take part in the Visionaries cartoon show. The show included such voice actors as Peter Cullen as Cinder, Chris Latta as both Darkstorm and Kravex, and Susan Blue as Galadriel. Also, one of the voice actors for the Visionaries cartoon had played a similar character before. Roscoe Lee Brown, who voiced Merlin, had earlier portrayed a character whose name and image were inspired by the character Merlin the Wizard in an episode of Once Upon a Classic, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, which was based on the book by Mark Twain. Once Upon a Classic was a television show that adapted many classic works of literature for television that was hosted by the legendary actor Bill Bixby in 1978. One of the most surprising choices for the Visionaries was the casting of Jonathan Harris as Mordred. Harris was a character actor probably best known for the role of the cowardly Dr. Zachary Smith on the series Lost in Space. His portrayal of the psychopathic lackey was a masterclass in voice acting and characterization. Finally, on December 15, 2015, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Hasbro and Paramount were creating a movie universe combining Visionaries with G.I. Joe, Micronauts, Mask, and ROM Space Knight together. Later on April 21, 2016, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Michael Chabon, Ryan K. Vaughan, Nicole Perlman, John Francis DeLay, along with his writing partner Jonathan Goldstein, and Jeff Pinkner had joined the writer's room. Finally, IDW Publishing will release a Transformers vs. Visionaries limited series starting in 2018, bringing new life to the world of the Visionaries and returning once more again to the planet Prysmos. Unlike many cartoons produced in the 80s, Visionaries maintain a sense of continuity between the episodes. The first 3 episodes were essentially one story which introduced the viewers to the world of Prysmos and its inhabitants. The main characters and their magical abilities set up the series' premise going forward. The Spectral Knights and the Darkling Lords were rivals for power, while Merlin was more of a neutral force, favoring neither side by using them both to achieve his own goals. One of the rules of magical use in the show was that the magic in the power staffs was depleted after a single use, requiring it to be recharged in Merlin's shrine, which he only agreed to do in exchange for the knights questing for him. Staves that had been depleted in previous episodes were shown to be blank in the following episodes until the knight had a chance to recharge it. While Visionaries wasn't the only cartoon in the 80s to employ a sense of continuity, it was uncommon as most cartoons would produce episodes that would be watched in any order to allow broadcasters to air episodes out of order. Although like many shows in the 80s being mostly created as an effort to sell toys, you can see that a good portion of lore and world building throughout each episode. The people behind the show were doing their all to make something truly unique with some remarkably great animation. The plots were quite complex without being confusing, and the dialogue used by the characters was sophisticated and not cheesy at all. Overall, it was a very imaginative and unique cartoon show. The creativity behind this show was something truly amazing. Visionaries has enough magic to keep you entertained all the way through. So take a chance on it, and maybe, just maybe, you might like it too. Thank you so much, and remember, when it comes to cartoons we grew up with, that to truly appreciate something, you have to accept its strengths and its faults, no matter what they are, because when that happens, you can appreciate how amazing it was, and how amazing it continues to be. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank you.